5, 4, 3.
It's like there's something wrong with the audio, right? All right, welcome. Woohoo! So 56, right? 56? Does that sound good? Okay. You can speak, Wulf. We can hear you talk. Wow. Well, today is a great episode. We have the illustrious frankstrona as our guest today. Did I pronounce your name right and everything, Frank?
Yeah, you did. You got it. You got it.
Wonderful. I've been a loose acquaintance with Frank for 25 years. We kind of known each other existed. Haven't spent a lot of time together, but I associate him with all sorts of wonderful things. He's a professional, and he's really blossomed. I don't know if that's the right word, or expanded. I think expanded himself in the last 25 years, and it's quite impressive. So thank you for coming on, Frank.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I like that. Expanded. That works.
I was like, blossom isn't quite right. Let's go with expanded. So we need your help in explaining you.
Sure. So, hi, everybody. I have this really unique background. I think, I started in business and ended up in Boston working for Gay Community News and wanted to work in gay publishing and LGBT content, even though I had gone to school for business and it just shifted. My career shifted many years ago. And from GCN, I ended up getting an offer to come to the West Coast. And I've been here well over 30 years now. And with time at the original Bear magazine, when it was still Brush Creek Media, and under Richard Bolger, did time with Drummer magazine, also did time with Bulk Mail. Then as technology shifted, did some work with Daddy Hunt. So my whole career really has been on the forefront of engaging people of all orientations and walks of life. But because I am who I am, I tend to also work a lot with men who resemble us, who, had a slightly off step to what societal norms around gay men and bi men would be, and how we were often left on the aside. We weren't supposed to be sexual. We weren't supposed to be attractive. We weren't supposed to wear certain clothes. We were supposed to be all very uniform even then. And you had to, be in buckets, whether it be you were a chub or a biker or, be relegated to bib overalls and flannel shirts. And I saw we had much more dimension than that. So I worked in those domains. And then because along the same lines, I was a health educator, I did work with HIV and STD. I continued that work because, I got to pay the bills, and living in San Francisco, even 30 years ago, wasn't cheap. So I continued to do a lot of work. I went into business for myself as a sex educator. I traveled around the world doing fetish and sex education, and really about getting people in a room of all types, because there's no greater excitement for an educator to be in a room full of people, be talking about sex and sexual presence and choice and responsibility and pride and what turns you on, and watch that person who's kind of like this all of a sudden inhale and shoulders go back when they take ownership of who they are sexually. And that's probably has been my driving force. And then about 18 years ago, I shifted a little bit with some requests to do more work at a national level with some health agencies. And part of it was to be a gay voice who was outspoken, who wasn't afraid to remind people that I was at the table, and have had this dual world ever since. As I continue to move forward. And now as I'm getting in my mid 50s, or trying to realize, geez, do I want to retire soon? Do I want to continue to go back to what I really loved, which was coaching and mentoring and helping LGBT folks really be the best they can be? So my world is very convoluted, but it's always very textural. I love how you introed me with it's expanded. Who would have guessed that I went from a very extreme left conservative gay news weekly or unconservative gay news weekly all the way to, having been and worked with government contracts and government organizations, having been in national magazines, both as invitational authors or writers or educators. So it's really the crux of who I am all of these years is, as I found out who I wanted to be, I wanted others to figure out that they could be anything they wanted to be. And because of our size or our facial hair or our age or our race or our ethnicity, we don't have to be stopped by that.
Awesome. Wow. Well, guys, I think you had a couple questions for Frank, and it's okay that they're basic.
Yeah, Frank. So what drove this desire for inclusivity for you personally?
I have always been that uncle mentality. Even when I first came out, I have a big family in the East Coast, and I never was the person who wanted to be completely absorbed by any clique. So I've always been referred to, and my friends, and I heard this early on, and I had a friend many years ago who actually named it. He said, you are 1 foot in. And I liked, and even in school, I was that way. I liked being 1 foot in many different cliques. I never wanted to be identified as any one thing. I felt that labels, while they have a use and they're a natural artifact of the human experience, they also can be a box. And I myself wasn't fitting any one label. So inclusiveness for me meant expanding the idea of who and how we identify, whether we were straight moving into gay or bisexual, whether we were gay or trans, or was it we, as I have been known to be sarcastic at times, that, there are bears who has been self-defined of a working definition. Probably every 5 years, a new working definition seems to come and emerge. Sometimes it's been great. Sometimes it's not so great. We had a really very emerging self-confident level of big men mentality for many years. And when bear became sexier than being a chub or being a girth and mirth participant, people all of a sudden needed to claim this bear icon because they felt the other wasn't as hot. And now, of course, we've seen that, and that has caused some issues in communities, of course. But I think what's more interesting is I'm now old enough and have been around long enough where I've seen some of the men now who are taking ownership of bear were men who were pretty and muscular and thin, who have now just exhaled and gained weight, who want to fit in. And I just learned a long time ago that I wasn't going to shave below my neck, and I wasn't going to inhale all the time. And I didn't care if I was a 38, a 40, or a 44. If I felt good and I wanted to look good in what I wore, that's what I bought. So inclusiveness for me was about I should be at the table no differently and as equitably as any other LGBT person and as any other human professional person should be. And that really meant that oftentimes I would have to address it multiple ways.
There you go.
Love it.
Same, multiple.
What comes up for you, Greg?
For me?
Yeah.
I'm curious about how you marry your life where you talk so openly about sex and sexuality with those government contracts and those kinds of interactions. How did those kind of mix, or do they?
When I was approached back in the day for a position I was working, I had been known to do a lot of gay men's work with nonprofits as a fixer. It was during the early years of AIDS, right. And a lot of guys were dying, and their programs needed to continue. So I had gotten a reputation of being able to go into a nonprofit, to work on a men's group, especially sex and safety and health education group, keep it moving until either someone came back or they hired new people. But because of the increases in syphilis several years ago, about 15 years ago, 17 years ago, we saw national increases among gay men of syphilis. And because I had very tight community relationships with sex party hosts and sex venues and web app owners, or back in the day, they would have been website social networks. I was approached. So people knew who I was, and I've never been ashamed of my past. And it's interesting because I was at an event recently and I found myself shaking my head going, boy, am I glad I came to age before social media for some of the things that I did. Every so often a photograph I saw an old bay windows photo of the first bear contest I ever entered. And I was like, wow, I am so glad that image is so degraded now that it will never see the light of day officially unless somebody's scanned in the scan. So, but it felt normal for me. And I think that was my reality. Is my brain filtered it as this is who I am. And everybody has different levels of who they are. When I come to play, I come to play. When I come to work, I come to work. And I didn't want to always be just the gay in the room. I wanted to be the trained professional. I actually went back to school later on. I was challenged by a colleague saying, there aren't enough gay men at these levels of making policy decisions. We have a lot of well-intentioned heterosexual women who make a lot of health choices for gay men. We have a lot of heterosexual men who make health choices for gay men who actually can get in the way because you hear things like putting a swab in their penis for self-collected chlamydia, and they cringe instead of saying, guys got to put a swab up their butt. They're going to do it if they want to stay healthy. It's not such an issue.
Right.
So I needed to figure out how to be at the table. And I went back to school for a master's in public health. And then I went back for a PhD and completed my studies in philosophy. So, really, I have always existed in, I want to do what interests me, where my passions lie, and trying to constantly bridge. I know it's funny on my TikTok profile, they tease me because it's like, I want to bridge sexual health, food, technology, and chaos all together all the time.
I need to follow that TikTok.
Oh, it was quite over the top this summer because I had collected a bunch of Speedos because there's nothing more than I love to make thin, pretty people cringe when they see a big, non-muscular, hairy, over 50 guy wearing an unusual Speedo, because I know it forces them to see that they have an issue with this.
Right.
Except I wasn't prepared to see the sheer number of guys who loved it, who were feeling like, oh my God, I could wear Speedo still, or I can dress like that. And that probably was the unintentional surprise. It pushed me over. I mean, I do TikTok mostly for stress reduction, and it's fun. So I didn't expect to see my followers creep up to 10 grand last month while I was away, simply for wearing different Speedos every day.
What's that called again, Frank?
What's that, TikTok?
What's your
my TikTok profile? It's Frank_mentor SF. And we had a lot of fun this year. I must have had 6 different Speedos and a pair of rainbow shorts. And I even think there was a great designer who reached out to me and said, if I design you some caftans, will you wear them? I'm like,
oh, caftans are big right now.
And they were. And I'm like, oh yeah, hell yeah. That's not I have my own, fine. And it's been great. I mean, the response, people were really, I would say, out of all of them, very few snarks. And really what it is, hearing guys say, oh, I can wear this. I can wear a shirt. I just wore one. I posted recently, a woman friend of mine she's this incredible artist. And she also is a therapist, but she does this really expressive visual imagery, and she made a shirt for me. She wasn't going to do them for guys, and she said, wow, guys won't wear it. It's very vulva-ish looking, and one of the designs was very kind of George O'Keeffe-ish, and the other one looked like a creature, which appealed to me. It looked like this kind of Lovecraft creature, but I said, I think these are hot. Why wouldn't a guy want to wear them? And they're bright colors. Just because I'm big, I don't have to wear black. So she made them, and I wore them and put them out there, and it was just incredible, the comments. So I think it's about breaking stereotypes that I really enjoy. If I want to wear something stupid, I want to wear something stupid. If I want to wear something classic and I want to wear a suit, I can do that. And it appeals to me. And I think I was lucky early on to develop my own sense of aesthetics and fashion that pleases me. And I refused. Yes, I'll have to pay more if I want to have it made to fit me, because society hasn't caught up with that yet. But I don't have to settle for what doesn't fit or what doesn't please me. And that's a big part. Matter of fact, Greg, the color pattern behind you is sort of the color pattern of one of the shirts that I love. It's those same vibrant colors. So
yeah, I like vibrant. I like bright. Yeah, for me personally. Yeah,
That's
that's
awesome.
great. That's really fun. I just want to throw out. I wore a house dress last weekend to a memorial for a dear friend of mine who passed away, because we had joked about how much we loved our grandmother's house dresses, and it was a big hit.
Yep.
And I do look really nice in a house dress.
Rock
They-
a moo.
You know, muumuus, caftans, house coats, they have had a resurgence because of COVID, people working at home.
Right?
And let's face it, for those of us who work at home, and many of us have this last 18 or 19 months, how many times do we really put anything other than shorts and a shirt on, you know,
anything at all.
or anything depending on the day?
Right.
I always have to double check what I'm wearing before I stand up, because
Yeah,
I'm
don't
like,
stand up. Yeah.
well, yeah, it's like, wait, I got up early and I work sometimes at 5 a.m. So I roll out of bed, put the coffee maker on and start a call. And I'm like,
Oh my God.
oh, I have to double check.
Oops.
We have to comb our hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the beards. Have you guys noticed that, you know, our beards look great and then you look at them in video and you're like, oh, where is my
that's
comb? And I,
exactly-
Oh yeah.
It becomes my mirror, and
Yeah.
I sit here and not do this in a meeting.
We're actually going to talk about that in a little bit, actually.
well, this is the first year. Last year was the longest I've ever grown my beard out. And it was somewhere between Vito and Wulf, between your length. I had never grown them out. I traditionally liked them shorter on me. And I, just because if I touch it, I screw it up. I always have. So I let it grow out, but it was too much work, straight ironing it and putting stuff in. It was like, just in order to be at an official meeting without looking like I rolled out of bed.
Right. If I take a nap, I gotta do my beard again.
I know.
Or wear a mask. It's
Well,
like,
I have
this is,
a couple
Massive
questions for you, Frank.
Sure.
This one, I don't know if we can get it done, and so let's see if we can do it in 5 minutes. That's going to be a challenge for you. The first one is well, it's two things. I want to talk about prep and how it's changed, how you see how it's changed the bear community, and then also I'm really curious, like, what the mentor thing looks like. How does it manifest itself?
Sure.
So I don't know which one you.
Let's do prep first, because I think it's really clean. You know, the advent of prep has allowed people to make choices differently. It has allowed people, and I think including bear and big men and cubs and otters and anybody, it allows them now to make a choice that isn't based on, I'm afraid if I say no or yes, somebody isn't going to want me. There's variations of how people can use prep. Not everybody has to take prep every day. They have done, you know, a lot of different studies on what they call intermittent prep. So you can take it before you're going on a weekend vacation or a party. So, you know, science is giving us an opportunity. The reality is that when you take somebody using prep and you take men and women and trans folks who are on treatment as prevention or their medication regime, and when you put those two tools together, you have an incredibly healthy opportunity in a community to reduce and lower viral load infections. So, you know, for many folks, they're like, I don't get this. Why should we give somebody a pill just so they could have sex without a condom? Well, the reality is, when you use that pill and you have sex with folks who are on their medication regime, you've made that opportunity to expose yourself. Now, if you're in your 50s, like I am, my entire sexual adult being was under the era of AIDS and HIV. So I came out just as it rolled out. So I've never had a world where, up until, you know, prep really became the norm, where I didn't open up my eyes on a day and think, is today the day?
Yeah.
And I think we have a very different mindset. When I look at young men and I talk with young men today, their mindset is very different, because they're now growing up sexually with prep and with other options, whether it's to use prep and condoms or to use condoms only or not use prep. But the conversations are different. So what do I think it's done? I think men, especially men of size in general, our self-confidence when it comes to sex and passion isn't always at the highest. We are often afraid to set our boundaries because we're afraid somebody will turn us down, or that hot guy we've been tracking now finally says yes. And we don't want to lose that opportunity because we aren't used to being objectified. I think because of magazines like Bear and the movement around big men and bear movement and body positivity has made us objectify ourselves sexually more so. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think PrEP has allowed us to have a new level of sexual confidence, which in terms, in my personal belief, makes us affords us the opportunity to have healthier sexual choices and decision-making power. And that's really what I feel it is. It's about being empowered, and you can't empower me. I have to empower myself. But if you give me the tools, I can empower myself.
And stress.
Like stress is huge.
Stress, it's like, oh, I had that sexual encounter, but wait, I'm not supposed to have stress now because there's PrEP.
Well, yeah, it's funny because there is research to show that when you have good sex, that's sustainable and that's passionate, then you have less of it. You don't keep trying to fill a gap. But when you have uncomfortable sex, or you have sex because you want, I often will work when I do the mentoring with guys, especially around sex and dating. I'll ask somebody who's saying, I can't get a boyfriend. I'm like, well, do you want warm fuzzies, or do you want passion and sex and raunchy and all? Which do you want? Do you want to wake up with somebody, have coffee and make them breakfast? Or do you just want to get your rocks off? If you are, and both of them are equal and can be combined, but if you're looking for one, but you go after it via the other, you're not going to have a sustainable, completed, full experience. And you wake up the next day unfulfilled, unhappy, potentially having made a decision that might not have been as gratifying. And then you do the cycle again. So, I often ask guys, what is it you want? Do you want warm fuzzies? Which is great. If that's really what you want, then hold out. Then don't go cruising that night. Get off scruff. Go find a date. Figure out a cuddle buddy. Find out how to get there, because when that is stroked, when you get that, you make a healthier decision. On the other hand, if you just want to get laid, make sure you know that, because you don't want to give out a mixed message to the partners you're with who thinks that you want to do more than that. That will reduce the stress. What's that, Vito?
Cuddle buddy. I like that.
Cuddle buddies. They had a big resurgence a few years ago, and I love this idea because, not everybody wants to jump in a relationship, but somebody, and I do think this is something the big men's community as a whole, with all the factions, they did the cuddle parties oftentimes because they knew intimacy, even without penetrative sex, was important. And let's face it, when you get to be bigger guy, sometimes penetrative sex or ejaculation, or even as an older guy, isn't always the goal. There are other things that become more important. And in our younger selves, when our 20s and our 30s, that's like unheard of. In our 50s and our 60s, all of a sudden, oh yeah, there might be some other ways that I get gratified. And I think that's where that all plays out.
Absolutely. Good answer.
Thank you.
But now I want to find out, and then we'll move on to the rest of the episode. What exactly does the mentoring look like? Is it one-on-one?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've traditionally.
What is it?
Yeah, I've done groups. I used to do groups all over the place. Pre-COVID, I would go out and do community groups. My last one, just before COVID closed, was a gay men in aging mentor group in Palm Springs, which they asked me to come out. I thought maybe we'll get 10 guys. We had 40 guys in the room, all wanting to talk about keeping your sex life fresh and as we grow up. And I think that I like that better than aging. We're just growing up, and it's a continual shift. But I do one-on-one. I do some couples. I do small groups. These days, they're almost all web-based, like many people. But I sort of like to tell people, I bridge the gap between your best friend, your priest, your minister, your pastor, your doctor, your therapist, your gynecologist. I bridge all of that, and basically I'm the ones who's going to tell you to shut or get off the pot. And when I work with folks, I don't like to do long-term coaching because I think that that's too easy to get stuck. Where I like to say is, what do you want to do in the next 6 weeks? Do you want to ask somebody out on a date? Do you want to learn a new, explore a new sexual passion? Do you want to rewrite your resume? Do you want to get critical feedback on how you interview? 6-week goals that we can then say, all right, here's what you've done. Here's your homework. Here's your feedback. Now make a change. And then let's regroup later on and more task oriented. There are many different ways folks do that.
Awesome. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to ask Frank?
I did notice the coaching on your website, but in your website, you mentioned something called alpha coaching. And while I'm familiar with regular coaching, I was curious what you meant by alpha coaching.
Yeah, alpha coaching is this interesting concept, and it's a bit of an entitlement. Alpha coaching is, I often work with older, senior, dominant business owners, people who are very much used to being the end word. Classically, about half of those are white males. Many of them are straight, but I do some gay men. And the idea is they're so used to being in charge that they never have anybody around to tell them no. And I think my favorite example is one particular fella. He has a great company. He was afraid of his staff knowing he knew nothing about social media. He couldn't understand Twitter. He couldn't see that, but he didn't want to tell his junior executives. He just kept shooting them down, and it was really affecting his bottom line. So he was referred to me, and we agreed to work together, and he had homework. And when I showed up, this was pre-COVID, so we were doing a face-to-face, and his homework wasn't done, and he wanted to do it together. I stood up and I respectfully said, why don't you call me and reschedule your appointment when your homework is done? And I walked away, walked into the elevator. His secretary followed me out. You can't do that. Yes, I can do that. He paid for this time, and his time is to have his homework done. That's what he's asked me to do. That's alpha coaching. Whereas I set our boundaries, you've met the boundaries. It cost him 2 visits. It cost him 2 appointments at very high fees because I didn't cut his fees. And he finally called me, and I made him, and I said I would not take an appointment with him until he called me. It was not his secretary's job to call me at that point because he had let it go. That's alpha coaching. I work with folks who are normally nobody can say no to because it's my style, it's my approach. It's a particular area that I enjoy, and probably just for a variety of other reasons. I like gentle coaching too, and nudging, but that's a particular group, and it often comes from folks who need it the most, but don't have a network who can hold a picture up around around a mirror of what they are getting in their own way.
I love it. There's somebody that's really screwing up the world right now. Thank God he's gone. There's a lot of that.
Yeah, that's beyond coachable.
Oh God! But I didn't Anne Rice do a novel about that under Anne Rampling? And then they made a horrible movie with Rosie O'Donnell, something similar. Anyway.
Yeah, they did. Gosh, now you're showing our age.
All right. Well, that is amazing. There's so many things to talk to you about. I think we actually did a pretty good job.
I think so. We got a lot of folks.
Well, I'd love for you to stick around, and we're going to transition into some other questions and ideas and discussions. And if you think we know what we're doing, you're completely wrong. So let's transition to not about what you can do to, and if I'm wrong, guys, steer it another way, to protect yourself and protect others and still have a great time, like at bear pool parties, or like what had the Provincetown incident that the media was all over, without judgment, without blaming, just make it informative, I guess. Anybody want to start?
Can we ask Frank about his experience in Provincetown?
No, that's a great idea.
Sure.
So you were in Provincetown, and everybody said, "Oh, it's a spreader event." Oh.
Yeah, we got there just after the July 4th. We go every year. We're from the East Coast, and we stayed for a month. So I think it's important to think about, you know, the event. You know, you have a small community that lives there. Then you have all of these people came in. It was a perfect microscope view. I mean, we've seen this play out now across the country in other pockets of large events. They just happened to be the one that was so clear. You had all of these people come in, and then a week and a half later, you had another huge group come in, and Delta was at the exact same time. The COVID Delta variant was on the rise. It's so subtle. The symptoms that people thought it was a cold, so they didn't think anything of it. They just thought it was like a summer cold, and nobody knew until all the pieces got together. Many of the folks were already vaccinated, so there was a sense of feeling protected, which everybody had been sort of, you know, geared for, unrealizing that even though you get a flu vaccine in a regular year, you still can get the flu. It's just not as bad. And so the vaccine did what it was supposed to do. Those who got vaccinated, who get exposed to Delta, stayed out of the hospital. They were they were sick for a week, 10 days, a few, depending on your level of your immune suppression issues. If you have other health conditions, you might need a little bit of extra help. But I think that we should just anticipate. And I think Provincetown really was they responded really well. Their health commission, their health authorities, the folks that were there, the organizers, the hotel owners, the guest house owners, the venues, they all really said, we've got to snip this as quickly as possible. I heard very, very few, it's frustrating. People pay your money, you're there for vacation, but interestingly enough, people were traveling with their masks already. So they just sort of went right back into the habit. I think that their numbers have come down. The positivity rate is significantly down. So you're seeing that even here in the Bay Area, we've seen some of the numbers shift. But the problem is, until a new variant comes along, this is what we're going to see. It's just, this is the reality. So I think in terms of what do we do to have a social life, to see our friends, I think there's some really clear things that I'm doing for me. I'm avoiding venues that are indoors unless I plan to be masked and am with people who are masked. If I want to socialize, my idea of socializing are going to be a lot of outdoor parties, a lot of picnics, a lot of backyard pool parties, I think work, where I can naturally distance without making it feel so forced. Because one of the big things that I noticed, even among my friends that I see once a year when I go back, is we were all ready to hug. We were all wanting, after the year before of not doing it. So, trying to figure out, how do we do this safely, wearing the masks correctly. And unfortunately, those of us who have beards have a problem with the masks. They don't fit well. And if we wear them too loose, and they're, the big thing is they really need to be tight here. And most of us, don't wear them tight enough. And of course, we all know if you have a longer beard, you're going to get the loop, you're going to get that little indent. I think the idea is it's just something we either cut our beards or you just ignore it and you move on. But I think making sure the kinds of masks we wear is the first thing I know. I have my preferences. You can do the N95s. I really made a preference of the ones that I chose that I feel fit my face right. And I'm a big body armor mask fan. They're comfortable. They echo a little bit of the Mad Max look, which I think is kind of hot. So for me, that works. But whatever works, whatever's going to get you to remember to wear them. There's a lot of small LGBT businesses who are making masks. Actually, one of the TikToks, I wear a mask that was made for me to match one of my swimsuits. So, you have to have some humor about it. But, wearing the masks, courtesy testing. So we came back from Provincetown after 4 weeks. We kept a low profile the last 8 days. I still had to go to the grocery store, but I had no symptoms, so I felt okay. But we went and we made an appointment yesterday and went and got courtesy tested, meaning I want to make sure I'm not going to expose. So if I were going to go to something that had big, I have a niece getting married in September. If I were going to say yes and was willing to fly back east for that, I would want to make sure I get tested beforehand and afterwards, 5 to 8 days afterwards, just in case. Really doing a critical self-assessment. How do I feel? Do I not feel well? And I think the biggest piece for me is kind of owning that if I am going to socialize in any of these events, the likelihood I could get a variant of some sort exists. And I have to be ready to own that and not hold other people accountable or responsible or nasty about it. If I want to put myself in these venues, like I still personally haven't gone to the movie theaters yet. I've not gone back to a movie theater. For me, it doesn't feel comfortable. But if somebody said, let's do an outdoor at home drive-in, I would probably do that. So I think it's about it in a lot of ways. It reminds me of the old days when we were using condoms. I have to make the decisions that feel best for me. I follow the public health leaders and the people who have the most recommendations, which are generally our health departments and our CDC guidelines. And then I act accordingly. And if somebody has a difference of opinion or wants to do things differently, that's their decision. But I have to act accordingly for me.
Fuck them, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, I don't care what other people think, especially of the mask thing.
It's a personal choice and a personal comfort level.
Well, I don't know. Well, that's nothing.
I think it is a personal choice, like in public. If I were walking down the street and it wasn't crowded, it might be a personal choice for me maybe not to wear it, or if I went hiking. But if I were going to be in Safeway or if I was going to be in a store, I don't think it's a personal choice anymore. I think that's an ethical choice.
And
go with what the business wants.
That too. Well, then that's the other issue, depending on where your listeners are.
Dave, where you live,
local
very
government.
Conservative.
Yeah.
Are they? They're not even wearing them in Walmart.
No.
Right.
No.
Even with the Delta.
No, not at all. I do myself, but like I said, it's a personal choice because local government is saying you can't mandate it, where they won't allow them to mandate it. So,
and I think that that's an unfortunate place because I think what that means is we have to rely on people's. And I'll use Dave as an example. That means, Dave, you've got to have a really strong self-confidence level to be able to stand out differently. And some of us do. Like my badge that I wear, with my my vaccine card, it says "wash your fucking hands." That pretty much is how I explain things. That's me. But I know not everybody has that level of self-confidence, and to stand out different in a Walmart because your governor, your mayor, or your leadership doesn't support it. That's hard, and that's a challenge.
And people do make comments. People say things, So
that was like in the beginning they were doing that, and then now it's back again.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I just drove 3 weeks across the country through Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas. The heart, Oklahoma less so, but the heart of the variant at the time. I wore the mask every single time I got out of the car to any truck stop. I had to, stop at some rest stops along the way, many of them. And not one person said a thing until I was in Paris, Texas, sitting in a restaurant. My cousins went up to order. It was one of those kind of restaurants. And I was sitting there and I had my mask on. It was before the food came. And a table a little bit away from me had this very skinny construction worker, and who I assume it was his mother sitting across. She looked just like him and bigger. And he went, "I can't wear a mask. It leaves a line on my face. It leaves a line on my face." And of course, I started laughing because I'm a 450-pound guy sitting there with a mask on, and the line goes away, little skinny man. And also his mom then said, "I am not wearing a mask out in 104-degree heat. I will not wear a mask outside." And I'm going to go, "Girl, in 104-degree heat outside, you are not necessarily going to be wearing your mask." But anyway, it was just funny that the only people the entire 3 weeks that said one word about it, people held the door for me because I'm a big old fat guy on a cane and I have my mask on. They assume I'm about to drop dead any moment. And truckers, big old burly truckers held the door for me. Not one of them scowled or said a word. So I was really surprised
It looks like you have underlying condition.
That it is not going to drop at any moment. And so I was surprised and I was pleased actually that I only got those two little silly comments that are going to make me laugh for the rest of my life.
I think there are more people than before. I think from round one that we're seeing more people who are willing to wear them. Yes, people are. I mean, we've got mask fatigue. I definitely have forgotten mine once or twice, but I think the new fear of how easily these variants happening, we're seeing more people doing that. I mean, we just flew cross country as well. We were out, I was downtown today, and I was really impressed even here to see how many people outside on a beautiful day were wearing masks. So I think more people are wearing them, but what will happen is the folks who make an issue of not wearing them will stick out in everybody's eyes much more. And from what I hear from my friends in Arizona and some of the other, they still struggle with, the balance.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know Arizona was such a horrible state.
Hey, now, no state dispersions.
I was just there, and every single person, except for a small handful, in the restaurants that I was in with my friends, everyone was wearing masks. I was really surprised. It may have just been the area we were in.
It's always the case that the people are wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
Or whatever, the local government.
Yeah, we have them in Orange County. They have some real pieces of work too. I think there's always a pocket everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's not giving them airtime at this point. I think we need to do the opposite. We need to give folks who are doing this, the kids who are having fun and wearing their masks, the families who are making the choices to get their, I think that's where we really need to go. I think that's stop giving airtime to deficit behavior.
Totally agree.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Well,
I live in Irvine, and I've been really surprised at how wonderful the community is. We're right in the heart of Orange County, and very, very lucky so far.
Still hasn't answered the question about pool parties. You kind of touched on it, Frank, but when you're physically in the pool, how do you protect yourself?
In the pool.
Can I tell Frank what happened to me briefly? But I don't want it to sound like a blame thing. So I was at a pool party. There were 150 people at this pool party that showed up, all surprised us. I'm sure everyone in this particular crowd was vaccinated. I am sure of it. But it didn't matter because there were people that insisted upon kissing you on the mouth because we haven't seen each other. There was hugging going on, but I assumed pretty much hugging was fairly safe because, we're in a pool where I'm assuming some salt or chlorine is going to do some stuff and we're all using hand sanitizer. But the ones that kiss you directly on the mouth, when you're trying to turn, but they go and grab them fat cheeks. And so that same person has kissed 150 other people. Exactly. So I got a nasty cold. I blame myself for going, so it's my fault. I'm just saying, but I got a nasty cold. My partner got a nasty cold. But the cold was so bad, I thought it was COVID. Honestly, and I'm not that. I am a little paranoid, but I went to the doctor. I got the thingy. There was no flu. There was no COVID. And the doctor actually said, you have a pernicious cold. It's going around. I've put 2 people in the hospital from this cold. So he said, all of our immune systems are not strong. Anyway, my point is that next weekend, I'm supposed to go to another one. And it's outdoors, blah, blah, blah. But I'm just a little bit more concerned about it because that knocked me out for 10 days.
So it's funny. I just had this conversation with a colleague, and she's got 2 kids, and they have been constantly sick with colds. Ooh. Prior to this, during the COVID, nothing.
Yeah.
So I think we're now getting tripped up on. We're realizing when we pull out of society for a year, all these things that we would have normally gotten, we don't get. Yeah. I would use a lot of gimmicks and tricks, and I have been known to use these for years, even pre-COVID. For instance, if I don't want to kiss somebody for whatever reason, I will take my bottle of soda or water and, oh my God, hi, how are you? As I'm taking a sip. It disconnects the urge to kiss me.
That's cute. I like that.
I have been known to gum and blow a bubble. I have been known to just come around and say, oh, I got coffee breath. Whatever I can to disconnect that 30-second which is all it takes. It's 10 to 30 seconds to disconnect the urge to engage. Yeah. If you don't want to have the uncomfortable conversations, is look, I'm not comfortable kissing everybody right now. And I don't think that there's always a time and a place, and we're trying to be social. We're trying to figure out how to work around it. So, just like flirting, use a prop. Right. I think that if you can figure out any of those, you could take the other end and wear a mask. And even if it's not a heavy mask, and get one, they have some now that you can get custom made, I'd love to kiss you, but ... I mean, it's a visual reminder that you're setting up, because people don't necessarily know you could have a health condition unrelated to COVID, that if you got it, it could do more damage. So I don't think it's intentional. I just think we are so missing touch. We're so missing kissing. But I would say use as many props as you can to separate yourself. But in terms of the generic going to the parties, bring your own towels. Try to minimize all that kind of other stuff. If you're going and it's a social event and there'll be food, figure out how do you feel comfortable, which it hasn't been much of the case around foodborne and stuff, but it's summer. So I'm always really cautious around any parties where people are laying out food in the summer just because of working in public health.
Because it doesn't have the plastic, right?
Yeah, you don't have the plastic
card
on
or
it.
whatever.
Yeah, so when I'm making things for my partner, or we've been going things, I purposely am making stuff that are individually, and I'll spend a little extra time, and I'll go on Amazon and I'll package it in little cellophane wraps, so people they can take one. They're not going to touch everything. They're only taking, and they know whatever they've taken. Because then if there is a problem, they know who made it. They know it's one person. So I think you just have to think creatively without making it a huge dilemma. I think we are definitely this is the best time to bring your own water bottles. Or if you're having a big party and you economically can afford it, create a party water bottle that is a gift or is a gimme for all of your guests. Give them out, give them a marker, let them mark their name on it, and then they can fill as they need it. I mean, and then you're not worried about picking up cups of somebody else's or bottles, which water bottles, how often have we been at one of those large events and we picked it up, we're talking and it's somebody. So I think we just have to get creative. I don't think there are any rules right now because we just don't know.
I call it kennel cough if it's a cold and not COVID.
Right.
And maybe Greg, do this, like put your hand up real quick and go, oh, I'm only doing European air kisses right now.
I'll just have to tell them to kiss my other cheeks.
Actually, both of those would work.
This is
on the pole, you can kiss those cheeks.
Yeah, in Palm Springs, they're notoriously unbathing suited parties. So there'll be some snuggling going on, I'm sure. So I'll just have to, if we end up going, we may not, but we'll see. But I appreciate
Make sure you get, what's it called? Permission or consent. Because that's a thing too.
Yeah.
Just because they're naked doesn't mean you can touch it.
That's right.
Vito.
Yeah.
Talking to myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So what did I do? Have I ever touched anybody without... Oh, that one time. I need to call and apologize.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Now let's lighten up a little bit here for the rest of the episode. Very curious about people's offices and what you guys, everybody's doing stuff from home. Like Frank, I thought that was real behind you, but it's not. It's a photo.
No, it's real.
Oh, it is?
That is what the back of this is a photo because I had good light, but this is literally what the back of me looks like right now.
Oh, okay.
Dude, I love it.
Have you seen those commercials where on the bike and the guy's pretending he's in a meeting? He's got his green screen on the back of his bike.
No, that is exactly what looks like behind me right now. It's just that I don't have those lights on. No, we decided last December to keep all the decorations up. So every month I've changed the decorations based on whatever the theme was.
So
and for Pride, because this is my office, I did this for Pride, and I left it up since I was away. But yeah, every month we've taken that. I've redone the tree, redone the garland, redone everything based on, like a $40 budget based on whatever the theme was. We just decided we would do that.
Do you have any toys? Do you have any fun things, memorabilia, or on your desk?
Oh gosh, I always have fun things on my desk. Well, let's see. What do I have this week? I just came back from vacation. Well, I am always getting toys to sample and to try. You have to understand. You have to understand. My world is what I have on my desk is probably like an HR nightmare.
Do you like say, honey, I need to practice something on you? I'm
sometimes
how you're going to react to this?
It has that those kind of conversations have come up. And I'm serious, my desk, but I do like things on my desk, and I play with toys. I think working from home, and I've been working from home, sheesh, 10 or officially 10 or so years. I get distracted, so I really stay focused. But there's always something to play with, and I love my history. So the history of what's happened and the things that remind me of the people that I've been with or worked with. A fellow that I am doing some work with just sent me a new T-shirt and a bag. It's actually in the other room, and it says dildos and jock straps. It's a new tote bag, and that'll show up somewhere. Just it pleases me. So yeah, toys. I mean, I have, as you notice, we have our infection, our vaccine badges, and we have one that looks like a TARDIS. I have one that looks like one is a plastic insert. It looks like the key card from the Bruce Willis film.
Element.
Yeah, the Fifth Element card. Yeah. So yeah, it's those kind of fun things. I mean, you got to have something of humor at all times. And I have a lot of art, so I have a lot of pictures around me to make me amused at any one time.
Cool. But Dave, you've got a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. I'm in IT, so keeping the hands busy while the brain's going is paramount.
Show some of your toys, Dave.
Some of your toys.
In fact, while the hands are busy, a friend of mine one of the guys that I worked with, 3D printed this. It's gears. Each piece is individually, it snaps on, and it's a gear. And so once you get it all
like
put together, it kind of rotates.
A home, what do you call thing?
3D printer.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it's a perfect cube, and then it's not. And, yeah.
Who would have thought gadget toys like that would have been like the next money maker? These little hand toy things. I mean, they're all over.
Yeah, made himself. But I love this one personally. It's extra. It's just wooden block puzzle pieces, and now it's falling apart.
I can't do those. I can never put them together.
I have like little knick-knacky things, like I got a horseshoe that has my name on it. I got a Knott's Berry Farm.
Oh,
and like a little.
I got my Cthulhu.
Oh,
Wolfie's got a chill pill.
Got a chill pill. Is that a squeegee thing for stress? A stress ball?
Oh, what is that one?
Gojira.
Yeah, I love it.
So all sorts of fun stuff. I know.
Yeah, mine are less for playing.
We spend an inordinate amount of time on our toys, don't we?
David, it's so perfect. It's like everything's like all set up perfectly and aligned.
Well, and now that I left LA, I have much more room, so I can have a room dedicated to me and my hobbies. Which is my office space where I spend all of my time.
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah, well, I don't. This is what's really going on behind me here. Hold on.
Chaos.
How do I turn it off?
Oh, Dave, I love your space. I love it.
Thank you.
And Frank, his vibrant space. I love it. Wulf and Vito and I.
Can I turn?
Well, now Wulf, your space is kind of interesting. It's black and white with some Funko toys, right?
What's going on?
This is basically the main living area. So here's my desk. We're planning on doing renovations soon, and hopefully I'll have the space for.
Vito lives in a bear's crotch.
Right.
Yeah,
there it is. Okay, this is what's really going on, because my office is my bedroom.
Your boudoir.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. See, now I don't feel so bad, because that's what mine looks like the rest of the time.
Oh, there you go.
So it's still there, but it's our guest room and it's the dog's room. And
Oh, I love the masks.
Oh, look at your
yeah.
great microphone, Frank. Looks wonderful.
Yeah.
no, that's
It looks normal without the buff.
they
Yeah,
tease
this
me
is
all up. I
so
forget
weird.
about it all the time. I don't even see it anymore.
That's great.
Okay, well, awesome. What a great conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wish it was longer, but I like to keep it to an hour.
Right.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
This was
Frank.
great.
You have to have Frank back for a part 2 sometime because boy, this
I
has
think
been
so.
so fun and so
I
fascinating.
know.
I could ask you
Anytime.
1,000 questions, Mr. Wulf.
Anytime. Vito has been trying. We've been having this conversation around the podcast originally and coming on. So I was happy when he said, are you available this week? I'm like, I had oral surgery on Thursday and I thought, I'm going to be home. I know I'm not doing anything. This is a perfect time.
Good drugs.
Yeah,
No, nothing. Ibuprofen. I had two
fine.
teeth pulled and that's it.
Yeah.
They're big on that these days, man.
Yeah.
they're not
I did the
giving
same. They pulled one on my front and they're like, have some Tylenol, you'll be fine.
Right. Yeah.
It's the antibiotics that
Same
get you.
thing. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy. I think this is so much fun. I'm hoping with Mentor SF, we're supposed to be launching. It was supposed to launch before COVID, a podcast, which was really about interviews with folks on how they found their voice. And the voice is any medium, in any structure of anybody. And, of course, working so many hours, it got derailed. So I'm hoping in the next couple of months to get focused on that. So you all may find yourselves back on one of those guests too.
There you go. It's coming up with the
Nice.
topics is the hardest thing, really.
Yeah. That's really what I'm hearing.
All right, boys. All right, everybody wave goodbye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks for letting me guest host. Thank you all.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for coming on, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Bye.
Love y'all.
Thank you.
Visit us at bearelement.com.